Do you really think you know what this team is all about? I'm Ethan Carter, and today I'm going to show you that the Seahawks are at a turning point that you might not have seen coming. While the offense is absolutely exploding with Jaxon Smith-Njigba becoming a star overnight and A.J. Barner proving that the tradition of elite tight ends is still alive and kicking in Seattle, the defense that was supposed to be our backbone is just crumbling with injuries across the board. 5 starters out, man, 5. And that leads to the question nobody wants to ask, but everyone needs to hear. Is this young, promising foundation that John Schneider built strong enough to hold this team up when reality bites back? Or are we just building a house of cards? Can we really trust the offense to carry this team on its back while the defense is bleeding out? All right, my fellow Seattle Seahawks fans, before we dive into today's news, I gotta ask you for a favor. If you follow the Seahawks Insider Report and you dig our analysis but you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely crucial for the channel and for helping our community of Seahawks fans keep on growing. Thanks so much for the support. 5 defensive starters out of practice on Wednesday. 5, you heard that right. And all of a sudden, that talk about finding a new right guard for Anthony Bradford became a sideshow, because when it rains in Seattle, my friend, it doesn't just rain, it pours. The entire calculation has changed for John Schneider and his crew when it comes to the trade deadline, which is just 3 weeks away, and now priority number 1 isn't the offense anymore. It's trying to salvage a defense that is literally falling apart in front of our eyes. Kevin Patra, over at NFL.com, put on paper what every veteran Seahawks fan is already feeling in their gut. Defensive depth has become the single biggest need on this roster. And get this, we started the season thinking the defense was going to be our strong point under Mike Macdonald. The irony is just cruel, isn't it? Jonathan Hankins, our starting nose tackle, is still on the NFI list from the start of the season. The rookie Byron Murphy, too, is right there with him, leaving a massive hole in our interior D-line rotation. But wait, it gets worse. In Sunday's game against Tampa Bay, we lost Boy Mayfield, Rayshon Jenkins, and Rick Woolen to in-game injuries. Woolen left with a concussion, and when you look at Wednesday's injury report, you see the full picture of the damage. 5 starters as non-participants, 2 limited, and a critical backup sitting on the sidelines too. Not even a defense as good as the one Macdonald put together can overcome that mountain of absences, and the worst part is that 3 of those guys are in the secondary, the one place where depth across the entire NFL is scarce. Every team struggles to find quality cornerbacks and safeties, and we're actually lucky to have guys like Darion Kendrick and Josh Jobe as options, but let's be real, they're the exception to the rule. Anthony Bradford and his comical issues in pass protection are still a real headache. I'm not gonna lie to you, the guy is practically a turnstile when the pass rush comes, but Patra nailed it. The defensive situation is now the absolute priority. The problem is, Schneider's hands are pretty much tied. Sure, he can try to swing a big trade for a defensive difference maker, maybe even 2 if the stars align, but the naked truth that nobody wants to admit is that there is zero chance, less than 0 chance, that we can replace 5 defensive starters before the deadline, especially 3 in the secondary. What competing team is going to give up DB depth? Only the teams in a full-on fire sale, and they don't have the players you want on a playoff roster. So the real scenario, the one we need to face as veteran fans who have seen it all with this team, is that Sam Darnold, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and A.J. Barner are going to have to carry this team on their backs for a few weeks until the defense heals up. And if they can't do it, if the offense slips up even once, our playoff run turns into a long shot bet we weren't even making in the bad old days. But does this offense really have enough firepower to carry the entire weight of the team while the defense is in the ICU? Trading DK Metcalf might not have been the disaster everyone thought it would be. I said it, you read that right. And before you start screaming at your phone or your computer screen, just let me explain why that sentence makes sense right now. The huge question mark hanging over the Emerald City when the season started was whether Sam Darnold could actually fill Geno Smith's shoes, whether that front office gamble was going to pay off or blow up in our faces. Well, 5 games in, the answer is screaming loud and clear. Darnold is delivering, and Geno, he's struggling over there in Las Vegas. Of course, Darnold's offense has quality weapons. Kenneth Walker III in the backfield is a luxury. Cooper Kupp came in as a free agent, and even at 32 years old with that scary injury history, the dude is producing. But it's not Kupp who's shining the brightest in this attack. No, sir. It's Jackson Smith-Njigba, and what he's doing in his 3rd year in the NFL is making everybody's jaw drop. Last year, JSN already took a giant leap from his rookie season, finishing 2024 with 1,130 yards and 100 catches. Excellent numbers, but his current trajectory is pointing to something much, much bigger, way more impactful. With Metcalf out of the picture, the seas parted for Smith-Njigba, and the kid didn't just take the opportunity, he's devouring it with a hunger that reminds you of the greats. And that's exactly why Darnold looks so comfortable, so in command. After the loss to Tampa Bay on Sunday, which wrapped up Week 5, JSN is behind only Puka Nacua of the Rams in some fundamental categories. He leads the league in target share with 33.08%, which means of all the receivers in the NFL, only Nacua gets more looks. Darnold is throwing the ball to Smith-Njigba all the time because he trusts him, because he knows the guy is going to make the play. He's second in yards with 534. Almost 100 yards ahead of Justin Jefferson, who's in 3rd with 449. And he's also in the top 5 for total EPA and targets per route run. Those are elite numbers, numbers that make general managers wake up in the middle of the night thinking about contract extensions. Sure, the total touchdowns and receptions aren't at the very top yet when you compare him to Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, or Amon-Ra St. Brown, those established monsters. But JSN is unquestionably the #1 receiver on this team right now, and he's making a massive impact on Seattle's offense. The difference between being the nominal WR1 and an elite WR1 still exists. Jefferson, Chase, Brown, and Saint. Brown have been on that level for longer, with more proven consistency over multiple seasons. But the pace Smith-Njigba is setting this year, the progression he's showing week after week, is putting him squarely in that elite conversation. And by the end of the season, we could very well be talking about him as a top 10 receiver in the league. And you know who's happy about all this? Sam Darnold. The guy spent years with the Jets and Panthers without a true receiver to rely on. Then he goes to Minnesota and gets Jefferson, and now he comes to Seattle expecting to throw to Metcalf, but gets Smith-Njigba at the peak of his ascent. It's every quarterback's dream to have a pass catcher like that. The spark that Mike McDonald was looking for might be catching fire right under our noses, and his name is A.J. Barner. Remember him? 4th-round pick in 2024 out of Michigan. Everyone expected a decent blocker who'd catch a half dozen passes a season. Nothing more, just another dirty work tight end that the NFL churns out every year. But the kid, he had other plans. The 2025 Seahawks were built to have an efficient offense that would help a dominant defense win games. That was the magic formula, the perfect plan on paper. And for the first 4 weeks, it worked. Kind of. Until the defensive injuries started piling up and that spectacular unit we knew turned into a shell of its former self. Diminished, fragile, bleeding talent at every position. McDonald gives that coach speak about the next man up mentality, that when a starter goes down, the backup has to be ready to be almost as good. But let's be honest with each other. We're veterans who've seen this movie 1,000 times. Backups are backups for a reason. They aren't as good as the starters in the vast majority of cases, otherwise they'd be the starters. It's that simple. But here comes the good news that could change the whole narrative of this season. The offense is better than expected, way better actually, and while a huge part of that is the elite level play Sam Darnold is delivering week in and week out, we've also got players stepping up, growing, maturing right when we need them to, and the most obvious of them all is A.J. Barner. As a rookie in 2024, he already showed he could be more of a receiver than anyone anticipated. He was a surprise. But now in his second year, the guy has flat out cemented his status as the undisputed TE1 on this roster. He's the most versatile tight end we have. He does most facets of the game at a very good level. But it's his ability to catch the ball and run after contact that's blowing everyone away, even those who believed in him. Against Tampa Bay on Sunday, Barner wasn't just good. He was one of the best players on the field. He caught all 7 balls that came his way for 53 yards, and that 7.3 yards per catch average seems modest until you realize that 2 of those catches were for touchdowns. He literally couldn't advance the ball any further. He was already in the end zone celebrating. Jimmy Graham holds the franchise record with 18 receiving touchdowns for a tight end. And check out this insane stat. In 1 full season and 5 games of another, Barner already has 8 career touchdowns. At his current pace, he's not just going to break Graham's record, he's going to pulverize that number and set a mark that will last for decades. This season specifically, A.J. Barner has emerged exactly when the Seahawks needed him most. We traded DK Metcalf, we cut Tyler Lockett, and the receiver group became a terrifying question mark. But Barner made the job easier for Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp. He opened up space, forced coverages to respect the middle of the field, and created the matchup problems that defensive coordinators hate dealing with. Through the first 5 weeks, he's 3rd on the team in receptions with 14 and receiving yards with 134. But he's the undisputed leader in receiving touchdowns with 4, which puts him 5th in the entire league. If he stays healthy, and that's always the big question with physical tight ends like him, Barner could very well hit double-digit touchdowns, be an integral part of the tush-push on short yardage situations, and even start getting serious attention in the Pro Bowl voting. But is emerging young talent alone enough, or does this transformation we're seeing go beyond 1 or 2 individual stars? In the final days of the Pete Carroll era, the Seattle Seahawks were facing a double-edged sword that haunted every front office decision. We weren't playing particularly well, and even worse, we were getting too old, too slow, too predictable. When Russell Wilson's play at quarterback started to decline too, any illusion that staying the course was a legitimate option vanished. It was time to rebuild or accept perpetual mediocrity, and nobody who wears college navy and action green accepts mediocrity. There are a zillion reasons why teams go through periods of failure, from bad management to pure bad luck, but the most common one, the one that kills more franchises in the NFL, is bad draft after bad draft. And the painful truth we have to accept is that the magic duo of Carroll and John Schneider that performed so brilliantly from 2010 to 2012, that built the Legion of Boom and gave us a title, suffered a long, slow decline after that. Names like Christine Michael and Rashad Penny, Malik McDowell and L.J. Collier, they make up a collection of first-round flameouts that hurts just to remember, and there weren't a bunch of late-round gems being discovered to balance out those grotesque mistakes. So Seattle became more and more dependent on veterans, whether homegrown or imported, with increasingly diminished results. Those mediocre drafts left an extremely thin core of young talent on which the franchise could build its future. And without a young foundation, there is no sustainable future in this league. That started to change in 2022, with Carroll and Schneider still collaborating on the draft. And despite some misses along the way, things today look infinitely brighter than they did 3 years ago. Right now, almost 40% of the Seahawks roster is under 25 years old. That's the highest total in the entire NFC West. And it goes beyond the raw numbers, because these younger players are among the best and brightest on the team, starters and leaders who should be wearing our colors for years and years to come. A sensational receiving core led by Jackson Smith-Njigba and including Torrey Horton, A.J. Barner, and Elijah Arroyo, all under 25. 3 offensive line starters, Charles Cross, Anthony Bradford, and the rookie Gray Zabel, also sub-25, while the other 2 starters are 25 and 26 respectively. It's a young line with room to grow together for half a decade. Kenneth Walker-III and fullback Robbie Ousts haven't even turned 25 yet. Backup QB Jalen Milroe neither. And even our starter Sam Darnold is only 28, still in the prime of a modern quarterback's career. On the defensive side, things aren't quite as rosy as the offense, but Seattle still has its leader Devin Witherspoon at 24, while promising young guns like Tyrese Knight, Byron Murphy II, and Nick Emenwari are all under 25 and showing flashes of future greatness. Plus, another 6 starters on offense and defense are 25 or 26, meaning they're still far from physical decline. Of course, some older veterans remain on the roster, Leonard Williams and Jarran Reed, plus recent acquisitions like DeMarcus Lawrence and Cooper Kupp are all over 30 and bring vital experience. But they are the outliers in Mike Macdonald's version of the Seahawks, not the rule. After those barren draft years that nearly killed our relevance, the franchise's scouting and personnel departments have roared back to life with a vengeance. 31 of the 38 players drafted since 2022 are still with the team. That's over 80%, and that number alone is beautiful because it suggests we're adding at least 8 new players a year via the draft, along with what we find in free agency, which means the entire roster turns over in 5-year cycles. And that is sustainable as long as a decent number of those draftees become quality pros. As I mentioned, the under-25 group in Seattle today includes many of the team's best players. So instead of being old and shaky like we were just a few years ago, we are now young and talented, which may not guarantee we win big, but it's an infinitely better situation than what existed just 2 years ago. So tell me something, after everything we've looked at today, are we witnessing the beginning of something special, or is this just another fleeting illusion that's going to collapse under the weight of injuries? The defense is bleeding, that's undeniable, but the offense has found an explosive identity with JSN becoming a star and Barner emerging as a lethal weapon. This young core that Schneider has assembled finally seems real, but youth alone doesn't win championships. You need health, luck, and perfect timing. The question I'm leaving you with is brutal but necessary. Do you trust this team to sustain a deep playoff run with half the defense in the medical tent? Or are we building for the future while squandering the present? Comment down below with what you really feel. No holding back.